Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fantastic virtual tasting with us at Becker Vineyards. We've had some technical difficulties this evening, so we're going to go ahead and record this like we did. I think we've only had to do this one other time, so not too terrible of a track record. I'm Rebecca Nelson, wine club director out here at the winery, and tonight we have our production crew's picks on what their favorites are. So we've got a great roundup of people and a fabulous roundup of wines. We have our 2016 Grenache Reserve from the Talent Vineyard. We also have the 2017 Ranger Haze, and we have a library release, the 2014 Chivot Noir. And those were picked by Rachel Fanning, our assistant winemaker and enologist, Brett Pernew, our general manager, and of course John Leahy, our winemaker. And then, so that they can defend their picks to the owners, we of course also have Dr. Richard Becker and Dr. Joseph Becker here just to keep them in line a little bit for you guys tonight. I'm going to turn it over to everybody to get you guys started. I hope you enjoy. Cheers.
Cheers, Rebecca. Firstly, I think it's Will Becker who has sabotaged the whole thing to prevent us from having a great follow-up from last week.
Quite likely.
So, Doc, Joe, would you care to kick it off for us?
No, just a brief mention about the cases are accelerating in many places, not just in Washington, D.C., but in San Antonio. This is the time. Just do not forget about masks, about distancing, and about hand hygiene. I think that's all I want to say. Other than also, let's have a wonderful wine tasting tonight. And I love the wines that you guys have picked. So I'm delighted to be here.
Well, fantastic. So Brett, Rachel, what do you think about starting off with the 16 Grenache, Rachel?
Works for me. I quite like it. It was my choice.
Well, Ian, don't let Brett talk over you.
No. I think one of the things that was fun about this week is I think all of us kind of, I don't know, maybe secretly wondered why the other one picked the other one when there's 40 wines to pick from out here that are on the bar. And that's just current releases, what made us pick these. And I definitely have an underlying tone about why I picked mine that maybe nobody knows, but we'll see if we can get through that part about why we picked the wines we picked, I guess. So why did you pick the wine you picked?
I like it. I like it a lot. It really, honestly, does happen to be one of my favorites. I will say a little bit of, it's not really backstory, but a little backstory. So Grenache has typically been a little hard for us to get. The eight harvests that I've been here, I think we got a little bit of it the first two, and then we went maybe 3 or 4 years without any Grenache at all. And then here's the 16, and I think it's just showing up so quiet. I mean, just lovely. It's just so pretty. And it's definitely welcome to be back.
Okay, but why did you like it?
It tastes right nice.
Well, give us the insights. Give us a little depth.
I'm hoping for something better, John. I think that.
Yeah. I think it's a great one.
Okay, so things that I really, really like about this, I do feel like it's very much of an old world Grenache. It's not the typical American New World style. It's, to me, it's very, not just dry in lack of sugar, but also it has such a drying quality in its palate. It's got, I love the bright red fruit that it has on it with this underlying notes of smokiness and dried herbs and this chalkiness that to me it just creates such a nice complexity.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what do you think of the wine?
Well, I'll tell you the backstory about trying to find Grenache in Texas is that for about 7 years in every meeting we've had every Saturday, Dr. Becker comes in and says, get more Grenache. And again, I think that's one of the neat things about this wine is you're not going to find a lot of it everywhere. There's not many producers that want to grow it, and we get back out in the vineyards and we ask them to plant Grenache, and they look at us like we have, a different kind of disease than we're dealing with right now. But they just don't want to grow it because it's so finicky and fickle. And Drew Talent up in Mason put it in, and we have a few other growers that have talked about it some, and BJ Reddy has a little bit up on the High Plains we've been getting for the last couple of years. And again, we struggle with trying to make it into rosé or into red. And again, we love the rosé that it comes from when we direct press it. And that's another argument that I think John and I have every year or two. when it's that hard to get it in here. And then we have another meeting with the Beckers about how we're going to do the different rosés that we've made in the past with Grenache or Mourvedre. I mean, I think it's fun just because it's not around and it's not very prominent in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It is good. And Drew does a great job with it. So Joe, Doc, what do you guys think of the 16 Grenache? What's your take?
I agree a lot with what Rachel said. I think it's just got such a I think just got this wonderful bright fruit note on the nose. I think it's I love it's a wine I think too that I'm going to want to taste again in 3, 4, 5 years. You've got kind of a nice tannin structure in there, and when I've tasted your wines that have that characteristic at this point in their development that you all have made, they're usually wines that are good now, but are going to do really well in another few years. I think it's going to age very nicely in the bottle.
Doc?
What I like about this is the combination of a wonderful expression of the Grenache fruit, and it's in a lot of the old world Grenache, the tannins sort of overwhelm it, and this fruit is beautifully ripe and expressed, and the tannins are there. They're present. They're soft. The structure is very complete. But it's I'm always amazed by the little bit of orange note that I get, orange zest in Grenache, in addition to the, I guess, raspberry fruit we're primarily smelling. But what do you think, John? How do you read this?
Well, I like it, but I've always kind of liked the Grenache from Drew's property. It's a little lighter as far as body goes, over Grenaches, and this is the thing I've never understood truthfully about Grenache, how it can be grown in the same area and be the same clone, and one's darker, richer than the other one, or one year it's darker, next year it's lighter. I mean, I get seasonal variants, but his has always produced consistently good Grenache. And the first one we had, Rachel, I think was the 2012. We did a little bit in 13, the end of 13 when we put it in bottle. And that was, it was really nice. And then this came in, and I remember Drew being very concerned that the 16 was awfully light looking. And I mean, it's deepened up. It's very nice. But, we did use a little bit of Viognier in here in the final blend, kind of to fix the color, make sure it didn't fall out. But it also added that back pinning on there. So Rachel, I kind of like your pick, and when I saw it, a couple weeks ago when you picked it before the email, I was like, yeah, it was like kind of an aha. Yes, that's a good wine, absolutely.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very nice pick. So I've absolutely enamored with it. So do you have the blend?
Can just anybody find this wine in the winery, or is there a secret code, or?
Yes, the secret code is, write this down, I am not Doc, and it'll open up every door. Yeah. No,
where exactly is it? Yeah, that's the question. Yeah.
I think it's in the tasting room with all the other wines that we ship out.
Yeah, it's a current release.
Yeah, it's a current release, so it's right there. We can certainly.
Attention release, is that what you said? I like that.
No, I think this is awesome. Okay, so Brett, your wine was the Ranger?
Yeah. So, and again, I think that this is the number one question we get asked at the winery, by people in the tasting room, by people on tours. I think when we had our group in this weekend that we had lunch with, or we had our little sit down with the Beckers, the question always is, what's your favorite wine? And I've said this a million times about, it depends on how the wine is acting, much like my children. But this one was a little more, because you really have to put yourself on the spot and kind of sit back and go, okay, why did I like this, or why do I like it? My reason for picking this is the label. So the saga of this label for me, and how it's evolved from the Raven to the Ranger.
Right.
And this is by far the hardest label I've ever had to put on a bottle here. Normally we can get it knocked out pretty quick, and getting this thing the way it looks, to me was definitely the reason why I picked it. And by the way, the wine's not too shabby. So it was kind of a multifold effect, but that was my pick. I think that the the idea that the Beckers had about trying to tie the place that we work at and the land that they bought to something that they remembered was when Doc, when I asked him, well, what are we going to rename the Raven? He said, the story about the Ranger Hayes being stamped on a survey, and it ties it to this piece of property that the winery is sitting on. So that was the reason for my pick.
Okay. Well, Doc, can you tell us a little bit about the statue? I know some people have heard this before, but just in case there's somebody that hasn't. Plus, it is a good story about the label. And
well, the label, our friend Clay and Pat Dahlberg, Clay made a wonderful sculpture of a standoff shootout between John Coffey Hayes, known as Ranger Hayes, actually known as Devil Jack by the Comanches. They definitely wanted to have him in little pieces. And he was chased up on Enchanted Rock and with maybe 15 or so Comanches around him. He had, I think, 2 5-shot pistols, early Colts, and he had a muzzle loader. And the story is that the first shot was taken with the muzzle loader. And there's a wonderful bronze that Clay did of this situation on Enchanted Rock, and then after that he had 10 more shots. And when his friends got to him, there were 10 dead Comanches around him, and there was 1 round left in his pistol, and that was for himself if they caught him, because it would have been exceedingly unpleasant. He had a fabulous career as a Texas Ranger. Ultimately moved to Oakland, California, where he became mayor, and John informed me, sheriff of San Francisco.
Yep.
So he was a formidable guy. When we were checking the lineage of our property, we found that he had actually surveyed it. Many of the Rangers early on were surveyors. He had surveyed the little spot on Grape Creek where our vineyard is, at our winery, and he had made a claim to it. And his plan was to have a cabin there, live there on Grape Creek. So this was all wonderful to find out and learn about. And Joe, do you have some?
Yeah, I do. I think that we, I think that this used to be called the Raven, and this is a wine that in many ways sort of became our flagship wine, and it was Raven was a name that was. One of the meanings of Raven was that it was the Comanche Indian name for Sam Houston, Cherokee, and a name for Sam Houston. And so, we wanted this. We know that people in Texas want to have, great things. We're trying to make the best wine in Texas. We're trying to make the best wine that we can. We're trying to make a wine that people in Texas would be proud of. And so, for a wine like this, it's one of our, our flagship wines. We wanted it to be symbolic of that. So that's why the Raven worked, and that's why the Ranger Hayes works. It's an important piece of Texas history. The relationship, the difficult at times relationship between the American Indians and the Texas Rangers, but something that we could also tie to our property. So it's the label and the name have a lot of meaning for the wine and for us.
And I'd say beautifully executed by you, Brett. This bottle is really a nice piece of work. A couple of things, John. Number one, this wine is wonderful today. I don't know what you think. Number two, in the current issue of Wine Spectator, there's an article about what's happening with Ravenswood. And apparently they didn't make any wine last year, and they're probably not going to make any wine this year. And we got a cease and desist letter from the former owner of Ravenswood. I think he now works for Constellation. And so Joe and I called our wonderful copyright lawyer in San Antonio, and I told him what was happening. And the story that I love is he said, he said, we can fight this. He said, I can take this all the way to the Supreme Court for you, where you will lose. But I will be glad to do this if you would like. I said, we'll change the name. And I really think that Ranger Hayes is actually a great name for a wine from our property. But Raven may be back on the market if Ravenswood stops
Nope.
producing.
They actually E&J Gallo just bought that and a couple of other labels from Canandaigua. It was announced this week. The deal is going through at the end of the month. It was postponed for the last year and a half because of antitrust concerns, but Gallo is going to own the rights to Ravenswood.
Okay.
Mhm. So,
But John, spectacular wine. I want you to talk about this wine a little
well,
bit.
you know, in any way you look at it, this wine flies. So it's an effort.
Well,
Yeah, let's get to the wine really quick.
John, I'd be curious. What are the primary what's the primary vineyard makeup for this wine?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Joe, because just so happens that this absolutely fantastic person I work with was very well prepared today and sent us all these wonderful blend comps and got to print them out for herself. So, like, hold on here, let me pull it up. So the primary vineyard for this, if I'm reading this correctly, nope, that's the wrong one. I got the Chauveau, sorry. Let me get this one here. So the primary vineyard is Canada, Wilmeth, and Becker. So for this Ranger Haze. So
this is the Canada Malbec primarily, correct?
right, yeah. The Malbec is 70% of the blend, and then there's 17% Petit Verdot and 13% Merlot in there. So
And is that our Merlot off the estate?
yeah, the Merlot and a little bit of and then the Petit Verdot is also the Merlot off of Wilmeth. As well. So,
And John, this had a very long barrel age, didn't it? Over 2 years.
yeah, just about 24 months actually. Yeah.
So longer. Yeah.
Well, we got the first part of it bottled in latter part of 2019. So we made a bunch of this. So we made a very large swath for this wine.
This is a very beautiful, silky, smooth wine. And Dad's right, it is tasting really well tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in the nose.
Historically, though, we made that with the Mason Malbec, and I think that this was the year that the Canada Malbec, after they planted that 5-acre block, kind of came into its own. And I just remember we sat down there and we kept tasting through it. And
yeah,
everybody really liked it out of the barrels, and we try to kind of go consistently with the vineyards, but this is also a good indication of how we let the wine kind of speak for itself as we're doing the blends. And we did flip from what was the Talent Malbec in this particular vintage to the Canada, I believe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did very well. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. But I will tell you that it's hands down so far, my favorite Texas Petit Verdot has been coming off of the Talent Vineyard. So that's some really rich PV coming out of there. So Brett, Rachel, what are your takes on the Ranger? Now that you've picked it, now you got to describe it. What is it about the flavor you like, Brett?
Let me go first. Or you?
Oh, I have something to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I want to say that I absolutely love the nose. When you first open this, and even now that's been open, I don't know, probably at least 30, 40 minutes. I just love that fruit note that it has and that underlying edge of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you go.
All right. So I think one of the things that I think at least I try to do is when we're going through our tastings, and when we make as many wines as we make, we don't want to make wines that taste similar to each other. If John had to blend everything up to make it taste like a Bordeaux blend, then we would have 30 Bordeaux blends on the bar. And John is probably also the one that's very, he kind of tells us a lot about being varietal specific and making it taste like the varieties that are listed on there. But I do think that when you try this, as you go through our lineup at the winery, that you can always pick up that Malbec, and it's got, to me, more of a bright, like blueberry note to it that just kind of pops that maybe the cabs, and this is, to me, it definitely is a brighter flavor than some of the other wines that we make. And I do think that that's also the reason why it needs to be represented and put forth, is that it is different. And if this is your speed, then hopefully you like it. But I am encouraged in the fact that it's one wine that you can take out of the lineup of the bar and pick out that's Malbec, and it kind of matches what it should be.
Yeah, the fruit note on this, just the scent on this, now that it's opening up, because I was a little late getting this open today, and it's amazing to me, just the layers here. Start off with a little bit what I thought might have been like a little deeper fruit, like almost like dried cranberry or dried raisin, but it's actually evolved a lot more into more like a mincemeat edge, which is really nice. Like it's such a pure. Sorry.
Do you get a little currant in this, maybe like kind of a dark currant?
Little black currant. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really do get that brown spice, almost like mincemeat pie filling spice to it. I don't want to say it's quite cardamom, but it's not. It's more aromatic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really nice. But that's also something I've noticed off of the Canada Malbec in general. It tends to have a really nice spicier note to it when it ages, which is really rather intriguing. So Brett, you picked this wine because of the bottle. Rachel picked the Grenache because she was happy to get the Grenache back into our lineup. So I guess I should tell the truth why I picked the 14 Chivot Noir, or should I make something up?
Dr. Pepper wasn't available. What happened?
Well, there was that. Dr. Pepper was completely out. When Brett came walking by me and said, "Hey, have you picked your favorite wine yet?" I was back in the stacks and I reached out and I said, "Yeah, here it is." And it happened to be a 14 Chivot Noir. No, I'm kidding. We had just gone through the Chivots earlier this year, and that 14 was the first. It may not be the best example of Chivot, but I really kind of like the idea of the Chivot Noir when we came up with the blend, the homage to Cheval Blanc with the Merlot and the Cab Franc blend. It was more of a romantic edge why I picked it over necessarily best quality wine in the winery. So it is a damn good wine. I just, being the first vintage of Chivot Noir was kind of fun.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Yum.
So what do you guys think of the Chivot?
John, would you like to talk about what the Chivot is?
Would I like to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
Know what it is.
Sure.
What
It's
is
red. You can see. When you swirl it, sometimes there's little bubbles that happen. So the Chivot is a blend of the Merlot and the Cab Franc, and I'm going to pull up the blend comp so I don't get this wrong. I just had it up here, but I want to excuse me. Want to make sure that I get it correct.
So while you're doing that, I'll fill in on how we make these wines, and I kind of always have to explain this about we make the wine the best that we can, and then we name it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do remember that as we went through these different Merlots and what we were trying to do, we always sit down on Saturdays and taste. And I remember Doc saying, the great Cheval Blancs are made from these varieties, and as we're tasting through. And Doc, will you tell that story a little bit about why you wanted to make a Cheval Blanc style wine, and before John divulges what it is out of?
Well, what I say about that is that I think John has discovered Merlot in Texas, and I've never tasted Texas Merlots like the ones he's made. And as he began to come forward, then I thought, the great blend is this portion of Bordeaux where they put Merlot and Cabernet Franc together, from Petrus on, and certainly Cheval Blanc, which means white horse. And so I thought these Merlots are so good, and our Cabernet Franc is so good, we ought to experiment with putting them together. I mean, simple-minded stuff. The name is fun. So Cheval Blanc, of course, was taken. Well, Cheval Noir, Black Horse, would be even a better name. That, of course, was there's a wine or a winery called Cheval Noir. So Joe, who speaks French, I fake it very effectively, very persistently, I guess I should say. Joe said, well, why don't you call it Cheval Noirs? So there's a mistake on this because
We're missing an S.
yeah, they're
on the
missing an
noir.
S on the Noir, and so it's black horses with an arrow. Anyway, that's we've gotten away with that. You want to comment on that?
I wanted the S, but you didn't think that'd be correct.
I
So
thought it was a little bit of a tongue twister.
And
I
that
wrote it.
what happens on Saturdays.
I mean, I do think I think we always have to share because people have watched Sideways that at the very end when he drinks a 59 Cheval Blanc in the entire movie he's refused to drink Merlot. I think because his ex-wife drank Merlot, and in fact he's been saving a remarkably famous Merlot for the very end of the movie.
Yeah, I always felt bad when people didn't get the irony on that. I always thought that was the funny part of the movie.
Yeah.
Every minute this breathes, it's just getting wonderfully rich. And the fruit note, the fruit spice note, John, is almost defies my ability to describe it. What do you say about it?
I say I think there's nothing that defies your ability to describe it. So I want to get into the really complex blend comp, as Rachel referred to earlier. That's why I had to pull it up because it's an extensive list. 80% Merlot and 20% Cab Franc.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it's probably one of the most complicated wines we make, next to the Canada Cab. The beautiful thing about this, so it's Jet Wilmoth's Merlot, and it's the Bingham family Cabernet Franc, which, you know, we don't get very much from the Binghams on that Cab Franc, but that Cab Franc fruit has been consistently really wonderful. And as a matter of fact, what the 2012 Cab Franc that our weekly host, Rebecca, enjoys so much was 100% of the Bingham Cab Franc from 12. So using that in a blend, we had to kind of make the decision. We didn't quite have enough to do a solid Cab Franc in 14 coming off of the bad 13 harvest. We still weren't back up to 100% of expected yield, but we did have enough blended with the Merlot. It just worked out beautifully to come up with something that showcased that beautiful pyrazine, that bell pepper edge of the Cab Franc, beautiful roundness, and nice depth of fruit on the Merlot.
And John, sometimes I feel like that pyrazine, that bell pepper taste that you get is a little overwhelming, but this is just so smooth and so well integrated in this wine.
And John, I want to say my sister has a great culinary palate and wine palate. This is liquid mincemeat pie. I mean, when you smell this and taste this is a great bite of mincemeat pie.
You know, I told you a couple months back when we first talked about mincemeat, I went ahead and ordered the dried fruit I need to make mincemeat. I put it in the cupboard and forgot about it. And about 3 weeks ago, I was going through the pantry and I'm like, why the hell do I have so many dried currants? So we'll be making mincemeat. So Rachel, what's your input on the Chivot?
The thing that, of course, popped out at me at first was the pyrazines, just how strong and while intense, they're not overbearing by any means. And I have to say, John, I say all the Cheval Noirs we've made. We haven't made that many. I think we have 3 out, no more than 4. I think this one is still my favorite.
I agree, Rachel. Yeah, it's wonderful. Boy.
Brett, what do you think? You
Well,
look so serious.
And I do think it's fun how this wine came to be. Again, you tell the story about how it evolved and what we were trying to do. And I tell this story all the time too, that we could take that Merlot and put it in a bottle and just call it Merlot. But the fact that you guys have the ability to dance off the cliff sometimes, or in a fountain, depending on what label we're writing.
Thank you, Brad. That was perfect.
Hey, cliffs and fountains are the same thing. But I do think it kind of shows the ability of you guys to be you have the ingenuity, or you have the foresight, or the artistic ability to blend these wines the way that you want. And I do think that that's something that is kind of cool about how this came to be, because I can tell you that when we went down the path of buying the Merlot from Jet Wilmoth, that the intention was not to make a Cheval Noir. It was just to make a great wine. and then you guys get to take it out of the barrel program. And by the way, the barrel program is also funded by our customers who enjoy our wine, and we're able to buy those commodities as well as the best fruit in the state of Texas, and that's how these wines all come to be. I do think though that that's what makes the different wines that we make. And if you would have rewound like my speech about this maybe 10 years ago, I think I was the one telling the Beckers they needed to quit making so many different like names and SKUs. And one day it was just like, forget it. Let's just light the candle and make 50 different labels and let the wine speak for itself. And that was when I kind of changed my vote for how we were doing certain things. So,
well, hey, Brett, the truth for me about this is that Robert Mondavi told me that nobody knows what's the best wine in Gillespie County, Texas. What's the best grape, or in Texas? You have to make them, and so we can't just look these up and say, "Aha, it's going to be this." We have to do what John has done, and Rachel, and you, and so it's been a wonderful journey. I mean, it's been a wonderful, exciting journey for me.
well, I'll be curious to kind of see what we say that the best grapes for Texas are in 50 years, for our kids and grandkids and all that kind of fun stuff. But I do think that we are in the infancy of knowing what the right wine for the state is, but we're having fun trying to figure it out, right?
Well, I think the three wines that you guys have picked tonight are very emblematic of that. You have just to tie everything together a little bit. The Grenache, great Rhone red, great grown by a great hill country producer. And then you have some very some strong high plains components in the Cheval Noir and the Ranger Haze. We've had a couple tastings where I really feel like we get a good overall picture of the great things that Texas grape growers can do.
Well, and it's not effortless to produce that picture.
No,
that's hats off to you.
Well, I'm going to go back and say that I think, between Brett, running herd on everybody at the winery and then still managing to get the logistics of the grape growers together, the contracts and everything delivered, we really do have a great cross section of what's grown out there. We're very, very fortunate in that. At least I'm very grateful for that. So.
Right, I did. It's right in my eyes.
Yeah, it's because God loves you.
The sun just like blew us up right here.
Right. It's been so lovely and cloudy, and now it's like,
look at that. It's like right there. Wow. You're in the spotlight now, pal.
Give it 3 minutes, it'll be over.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to the Grenache. And Rachel, since it's your wine, what's your food pick?
Oh.
Go.
I had a great one earlier. Dadgummit. And I think about this during the day, and I had a really good one. Remember? Lost it. Totally lost it. If I say Whataburger, is that wrong?
No.
It's just a little odd, but not wrong.
Don't knock it till you try it.
No.
Actually, and I think one of the things that's fun about the Grenache is because it is light-bodied, but it does, and relatively light alcohol given, where we are and what we produce. But it has such great notes to it that it does pair so well with spicy food. I think you couldn't go wrong with any kind of a hearty, like a beef bourguignon kind of dish. But also something a little spicy too would pair well.
Brett, this reminds me of, we spent some days in Provence studying lavender and studying Provençal wines. And every night we'd all come back with bottles of wine from different points of the Cummins. We were close to Avignon, and we always had these wonderful Grenaches at night, with all the spicy foods and things that people eat in that part of the world. This really reminds me of that. Those wonderful pizzas we used to walk down the street for, and this lovely French woman and her daughter were making the most beautiful pizza, and we'd bring those back or we'd barbecue something. But this wine reminds you of the Grenache we had in Provence that year.
Yeah, and I remember we'd go to a 5-course lunch that took 2 or 3 hours or 5 hours, and then come back and order pizza because it was so good.
It's an hour and a half per Michelin star,
Yeah.
Brett. So 3 stars, it's going to be about 5 hours. So
Doc, I don't think I could imagine any better compliment than what you just said about any wine that we've.
Thank you.
Oh, those are good. So Brett,
I have
we're
to-
not done. We're gonna go to the food, but then we're gonna get everybody else's take on what you said. So what do you think on the Ranger? What would you pick?
Oh, I think that this goes with a lot of things. I think it goes with a chicken marsala that's got some tomato on it. But I would also eat it with pasta. I would eat it with baked chicken or smoked chicken. That's just where I'm going in the middle there. I try to tend to stay a little less heavy, but one of the things I guess when we've gone to all these crazy events, and one of the things that we had at Buffalo Gap when the guys from Argentina came down and did all the cooking over the fires, and we had all the Malbecs. I don't think there was anybody that would argue with eating Malbec with fish or beef or chicken or lamb. It was just one of the most incredible things, and I do think that that's what makes this such a great wine, because it'll pair with anything from a pasta all the way up to a steak. So that's a very vague answer. So
No, that's fine. There's as far as the Chivot Noir goes, there's only one thing that pairs with this, and it's very simple, plain, untouched pecan.
John, here it is.
Oh my God.
Exactly what we're having. Yeah.
So John, I have to ask, we were talking about Whataburger earlier, just to take this conversation down a couple notches.
That's too many notches.
At the end of Sideways, is he in an In-N-Out burger? Does anybody remember?
Yeah. In and out. Yeah, I know. Well, and I'm sorry. It was a perfect suck-up moment. I just couldn't keep myself from laughing. I'm actually going to steal a chapter from Brett from earlier. Tenderloin.
No.
What? I'm sorry, but my real answer is just a good piece of beef on this would just be fantastic. So, Doc and Joe, you've had the three wines. What's your food take? All three. Let's start with the Grenache and the Ranger, and then the Chivot for each of you.
Can I have one that I think would go, in my opinion, would go well with all three, which is that my 8-year-old and I slow barbecued some rack of lamb the other night that we'd perfectly seasoned with some thyme and rosemary, and I think it would match well with any of these three.
Mm-hmm. I've got rack of lamb in the freezer. I think I've just been inspired.
Yeah,
It's good.
So, Doc, what do you think? What would be some food choices for these wines?
With the Grenache, that great pizza we bought down, we had to walk about a quarter of a mile down to a little pizza stand, and they cooked it for you when you arrived. And the cheese was very delicate. It didn't have a lot of other things added to it. It was just a straightforward, simple, beautiful cheese pizza. This Ranger Haze is so good that
it really is. Just smells.
I just don't know what to say. But I think rack of lamb. That was just right. This would be wonderful. And boy, the Chivot Noir. I just like to be there, and I'll bring the wine, and you bring the food. I mean,
right.
Well, we could order the pizza, but the delivery time would be about 24 hours or something like that.
I'll be there.
We probably just need to make our own pizza oven.
It'd be about 2.5 weeks when you have the isolation involved.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Well, I figure we could get a bottling line part overnighted from France. We ought to get a pizza, right?
Exactly. What I like is that we couldn't have had three wines that probably wouldn't pair well together, one right after the other. These did so very well as our favorite picks. They are completely different, but it's fun to go back and forth. We started with the Grenache, went to the Ranger Haze, and then ended up with the Chivot because it had the most pyrazine in there. But, just going back and forth, it's a very easy jump to make. You can tell the difference. There's some cloudiness on the palate when you make the jump forward and backward. But
I think I would say about these that I would be honored, thrilled to taste any one of these with a friend, a wonderful friend I hadn't seen in 20 years. That would be the treat. And so I can't quite say I made this wine. I can say I was involved in making it, but I'm really proud of all three of these. Thank you.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. Rachel, I think we're going to keep our job for another week. Yeah. But do me a favor, Rachel, don't make Brett mad.
I got nothing.
Well, what are we doing next week?
Yeah. Yeah. What are we
don't
doing
get
next
mad.
week for the wines? What?
I don't get mad.
What are we doing next week for the wines?
Now I'm getting mad. No, I'm just kidding.
Why
Why don't you know this?
Uh,
No, it's the wine club selection. I think it's the mixed case or the mixed wine club member wines. And again, it's something that if you're a club member, you can log on to this. They're already going to be shipped to you. If you're not in the mixed club, then you need to order them to kind of figure out what we did and why we did it. And then as we go through the next couple of weeks, we're going to bounce around and do the selections that are in our club shipment.
Yeah.
And that's our goal. That's our plan currently. So 3
yeah,
more
so
weeks.
we're doing the Culinaria Petite Syrah and the 17 Shard next week.
Yes.
Fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a lot. And see, it looks like I remembered that, but I'm actually reading Kaylin's little text that she just sent with that. So she's keeping
good.
it all in line.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it for sure was the mixed one. Past that, I'm going to have to give you, another week to figure it out. But we're going to do I think we're going to do the white wine case second, and then the red flight, the last one. So,
Fun.
yeah. And again, if you're wanting to come to the winery, we've been having this question a lot, like what's happening? How are we doing that? The winery is open by reservation. Make your reservations. They're booking up fast. We're doing bites tasting, and we're doing charcuteries. We're doing wine by the glass on the patio. It's pretty decent out here. I would say the weather's been the most amazing it's been in months and weeks. It's supposed to get hot this weekend and then cool back off. So the zinnia field is in full bloom, and we're pouring wines on the patio, and it's not a bad deal to be in the hill country currently.
Yeah, I have to add too, because Chef's done a very nice job with those bites. So I encourage everyone to order the Chef's Bites tasting when they make a reservation. I think you'll be very, very pleased with the wines that we've chosen and with the bites. And my goal is to, as always, our goal, not mine, but our goal is to try to pair the food, the bites with the best wines that we have. And we've done a remarkable job. So we've got 3 flights that people can choose from with the same bites. You could choose, so if you have 3 people in your party, each of you choose a different flight with the same bites. So you guys will have a lot of fun. I think it's a wonderful way that Brett organized it. And Chef's done a nice job with revisiting some old favorite bites and putting them together in a new format. So.
And I guess my message is make sure you have a reservation. We're operating on a limited capacity.
Yeah,
I heard today that there was a change in what the rules and the laws were, but I don't think we're going to switch that very quick. I think we're going to keep doing seated tastings in the inside and outside as the weather changes, kind of as we go forward. So my message is make sure you get your reservation if you're coming to the winery to make sure that you got a spot because we're filling up quick.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's been wonderful to see folks back and enjoying themselves. And they've got a beautiful view right now between the zinnias. And, the background between the two of you where you're sitting and just looking at those oaks back there, it looks fake almost. Really?
Here, look. Here, I'll do a pano.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were going to move our office out here, but, we have to work.
We won't get anything done. Doc, Joe, would you like to say anything to wrap us up?
Just that, as Dad mentioned, unfortunately, we're seeing the cases rise again, and as we're both physicians, and I'm seeing it with medical assistants and nurses are starting to get it again, and so I encourage people to keep those masks on, or stay in and have a glass of wine, or have a glass of wine with us every week. We look forward to it, and just stay safe.
Well said. Well, I would like to add, thanks for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties. As you rewatch this, we appreciate your support. We look forward to next week where we can be live and interject with some comments from our wonderful fans. So cheers to
Thanks,
everyone.
Joel. Cheers.
Good.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.